This is a brand new dehumidifier to the marketplace that has some really interesting features. Now this is Santa Fe, a company that's been a long-time sponsor of the Build Show. And if you know me, I build houses here in Austin, Texas, where it's extremely hot and also really dang humid most of the time. So I'm a big fan of every house I build gets at least one dehumidifier, oftentimes two. On most houses that have 2 stories, I recommend 2 dehumidifiers. Now, a couple things going on here. This is the Santa Fe Ultra V155 model. 40% smaller than the previous 150 pint per day model. So this is actually a pretty tiny, compact cabinet. But here's the big deal. They've increased the fresh air input side. You know, you can actually use these to bring fresh air into your house, run it through the dehumidifier, and then send it through your ductwork to bring fresh air in. And this model now has an 8-inch port. The previous model had a 6-inch port. So depending on your size of house and how much fresh air you need to meet that ASHRAE 62.2 standard, this 8-inch might be just the ticket you need. Now it doesn't come pre-installed, so we're gonna have to add this to the side if we're gonna use this for fresh air. But on my houses, I typically use ERVs for fresh air, and then the dehumidifier just has its own input and exhaust. Couple things I want to mention on this unit, and by the way, I'm a big fan of reading the spec sheets from manufacturers. Check out this running amps. This thing at 73 degrees and 60% relative humidity only uses 7.1 amps. That's very low amp draw considering how big this cabinet is. And it's got a very quiet sound deadening on the cabinet. When it's running, it's only 63 decibels. So this is a very quiet unit. Apparently the manufacturer changed some of the cabinet design, and there's a full insulation on this cabinet, which is going to help with noise. But also, if you were going to put this in your hot attic, you know, let's say an unventilated attic, not a house I would build, but maybe a retrofit, this is going to help keep condensation from forming on that cabinet by having that extra insulation there. The next thing I want to mention on this one that's really nice that I like, or 2 more things, this has really nice filtration. You've got a filter option on either side to get to this filter, and it's just a magnet, which I really like. MERV 13 filtration comes standard on this, and it's a nice 2-inch pleated filter, so you're easily going to be able to go, on most houses that is, 6 months I would think between filter changes. And then the other thing I want to mention is this has top controls, or you can remote your controls. So for instance, if you have a smart thermostat, you could connect it to this board right here, and so you could remotely control this dehumidifier, or you could also put a remote humidistat in, and they include one in the box. That's this guy right here, a little tiny guy. This could also get painted to match your wall if you wanted to, and then this could be mounted somewhere, let's say up high in a hallway or in a 2-story area that might tend to be more humid. It could sense that humidity and tell this machine, here's the humidity. And then if you look on the side here, it's got full controls right on board, which I like, potentially rather than having you know, a wall wart to control this thing. We could just set this at 50% relative humidity, turn it to fan auto, and then boom, this thing will run whenever it needs to run. All right, so that's first up on new products. Next up, I want to show you a couple products that I'm actually going to be using this summer on my family vacation, so I'll meet you in my driveway.